Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland manga review. This one's going to be for chapter 153, which is called Coward. And this was a very interesting chapter because I don't think many people expected it to happen this quickly. In that, in this one chapter, the first chapter of Emma and Ray getting to talk to Norman, they effectively accomplished what they wanted to, which was to sort of get him back on side, get him to move away from just going ahead with the plan to wipe out all of the demons. And on one hand, you can look at this chapter and be like, wow, that was super rushed. But on the other, I think it's written well enough that it actually really works as this big kind of emotional back and forth. So let's just go through it and go into the detail here on this very huge chapter of The Promised Neverland, and that this is a super important conversation. The obvious comparison that comes to mind to me in terms of a series ultimately building to a point where the most important thing in a way is the two characters talking and what they say to each other was right at the end of Naruto. That obviously built up to the final fight between Naruto and Sasuke. But almost more important than the fight was what they said to each other afterwards. And I thought Kishimoto really nailed the dialogue between those two after the series building up to that point from so early on. I was actually very, very impressed with how he managed to do it without having to do anything too crazy, too complicated. Just having Naruto be Naruto and having Sasuke just be sort of frustrated and just asking Naruto, like, why did you go so far for me? And then just that opening of the door slightly, the explanation back and forth between them, the dialogue back and forth is able to get you to that point where you resolve the series in a way that feels right for both characters, and it's really, really well written. Here, I think it works similarly. The problem, I think, is that we don't know enough about the exact details of Norman's experiences as part of Lambda. Now, they explain some of it in this chapter, but the fact that we never saw that as like an arc or anything like that, I think means there's a lot of sort of missing information, a lot of missing context that would have really helped to understand things a little bit more on Norman's side. Whereas I think we fully get Emma's side of things completely. Norman, I think we needed to know a bit more to fully have this like hit home as hard as it did. But I still acknowledge it's pretty well written for what it is. The big question I think comes out of the chapter is, what does this mean for like how long is left in the series going forward? Now, obviously, when I get for the chapter, we'll discuss all the various points that are up in the air or not, how much time is left. But the fact that they sort of in a way like resolved this thing with Norman, which seemed like it would be a thing that takes ages to get through, multiple back and forth, multiple chapters, of the discussion going back and forth, reveals and counter reveals type thing. They just did it in one chapter, so are we in like single digit chapters left or not is the big question. But anyway, let's go through it. So the first page, first and second page are basically just recaps of the end of last chapter, which is, of course, Emma and Ray walking in on Norman in the room, covered with the corpses of all of the demons that have just been killed, including Averk and the Queen and so on. And yeah, they just note all of them have been killed. Norman says that they've killed each other. They're all dead now. The Queen, the nobles, the Jiren clan, all of them. And with Emma, you see her reaction is kind of like she's shocked. But what really sort of upsets her is seeing the kind of masks of the kids basically there. The sort of innocent victims of all of this in a way. Because there's only so much sympathy, I suppose, you can have for the likes of the Queen, Averk, the heads of the nobles, but the fact that their families were killed as well, including their kids, it's a bit much. But Emma says, Norman, I forged a promise. Everybody can escape to the human world. So that's her revealing to Norman for sure that like the thing I set out to do, the thing that you said you would paused the plan for, I actually accomplished it. And his reaction is like, he's sort of somber about this, and the other kind of Norman's lieutenants sort of watch on, and as she says, you don't need to fight anymore. Hey, starting now, let's stop with the extinction. Norman just says it's already too late. It's impossible now, Emma. The monarchy has collapsed, a monarchy that lasted for thousands of years. Governance by the demons is impossible now. Peace is impossible for them. Everk was the last one, and I killed him myself. So that's very, very interesting that we sort of saw him killed off panel. And now we get confirmation that Norman was actually the one who did it himself. He delivered the final blow. He actually has blood full on his hands. It's not just that he came up with a plan that led to the death of a lot of people. He actually did kill someone. Again, how much sympathy can you have for Everk given his role in a lot of like what we saw before in terms of the bad leadership of the demons? But still, Emma seeing Norman admit to the fact that I've killed someone is pretty big here. And we get the big panel here. We've put a lethal fissure in the demon society of this world, a fissure that they can't come back from. Only thing left to do now is to shatter it. All of the demons will die out. There's just one more push left until their extinction. We can't go back now. We have no choice but to wipe them out. Don't get in the way. And we just have Emma looking down, feeling... As of this point, just a few pages in, it feels like this is going kind of exactly the way you expected it to. That the initial appeals of Emma and Ray were not going to get anywhere. Norman is too far down this path, that he's not going to let a little bit of emotion from Emma get in the way of that at all. But it's from here that the real sort of like, oh, they're committing to this right now comes into play. And this is the approach that they take. This is very telling here. Emma just puts her head up and shouts, "No way." And what's interesting here is they cut to a reaction shot of like Vincent and the Zazie and so on in the background, and it's a sort of comedic reaction of like they are shocked to like see Emma, talk to Norman this way. Like Norman to them is their boss, but Emma, of course, is close friends with Norman, so they're just kind of shocked to see, someone, I suppose, just not letting Norman just say what he's saying and it be just the full stop in the whole conversation. She's just like, no, I don't agree with that. And they're like, what? And it's one of the things that leads me to believe that like I don't really think we're kind of going in the direction where Vincent, Zazie, the other two are going to like necessarily be villains as such. They're going to be the next conflict, because they do this a couple of times in this chapter. Like they'll do something with them, I'm sure, but I don't think it will lead to all out and out conflict. Emma goes on after she says no way and says, I don't get the point of war and slaughter. I don't want to wipe them out. There's no way I'm going to let you be even more of a murderer. And this seems to hit Norman. He's like, Emma, ... And this is where I think the scene from last week with the look back from Norman just as they were about to fulfill the final stage of the plan, and he looks back and sees that younger version of Emma, younger version of himself, that there was that sort of weakness there. He wasn't, so solidly set in, this is the plan, this is everything that we are, that he's so strong at this point that he won't let anything sway him. The weakness is being found out here. Emma says, we'll find a way. It'll be tough, but let's think it through. No matter how hard it gets, we can't give up. It's never too late. And we have Norman trailing off as he says Emma and looks down, and she is about to speak. I will pause for a second here and just note the whole line there. It's never too late. Given what we sort of learn in this chapter, that Norman confirms that he doesn't, like, the lifespan of himself and the others, they don't have much time left. It is interesting that Emma's wording there is that it's never too late, and Norman's reaction is like, Emma, that it hurts him here that he knows that like Emma's doing all this for him here and trying to get him back on track, but he knows that there kind of is no future for him ultimately, so that's why he's sticking strong to his plan and is not going to let Emma, change him or kind of divert this course. But again, Emma, shouts above Norman here. I've decided I won't let you sacrifice yourself again. I won't let you go at things alone. And there's an interesting shot again. We cut to Vincent, and he kind of has a big question mark, and the other guy's like, just has this sort of ellipses, like I'm thinking about something. What are you talking about? Didn't I tell you that I'm not going anywhere? And immediately the reaction from Emma is, you're a liar though, I can't trust you. And again, it's just these kind of moments of Norman making what seems like this is the end of conversation statements, and Emma just sort of shouting past them. And the reaction from Vincent and the others is just like, whoa, like what is she doing? I can't believe she's speaking to Norman this way and just like getting her point across like this. And I think it's in a way like because of the reaction of the likes of Vincent and so on, and how sort of almost comedic it is, it really, I think, helps to deliver the kind of emotion of the scene here, that in a way Emma's responses are sort of made more passionate than they would be if it was just Norman she was talking to. Whereas the fact that, the people around Norman are having these reactions to what she's saying as well is kind of getting it across a bit more. You can't keep fooling me. I'm not an idiot. Don't underestimate the family you grew up with. We can see through all of your tricks. We have her remember back to when she asked Norman before, what about you, Norman? Doesn't it hurt? You never replied back then. It must be so painful. Because you're so smart, you chose the reliable path. Because you're so kind, you shoulder the burden for everyone. I don't think you want to wipe them out. I don't think you want to truly slaughter them. I think that line is very well written there. Because you're so smart, you chose the reliable path. Because you're so kind, you shoulder the burden for everyone. That Norman's been trying to almost like lead us to believe that it's all about the smart. He's choosing what he thinks is the logical path, regardless of how dark a path it is. But she also points out that you're also kind. Like, the reason ultimately you're doing this is because you're kind. You want to sacrifice yourself and everything that you are so that you can, in your opinion, make a better place for everyone else, regardless of how you accomplish that. And it's an interesting one because you immediately are thinking back to like the sort of first arc and the fact that he sacrificed himself in that way before. And, it was Ray about to do that sacrifice, but then Norman did it and to save Ray and so on. And it's interesting the approach that they take here. You shouldn't lie to yourself, Norman. Let's talk it out. What are you hiding? What are you so afraid of? And this is the thing that kind of catches Norman here. Afraid. This is when I think Emma actually says this. It's kind of unclear just because the focus is on Norman and then we have the bubbles in the background, but I think she actually says this. The Norman in front of me now looks like a scared, trembling child, and we get this really, really nice shot of a sort of shocked present-day Norman, and then sort of below him as sort of the representation of his actual sort of feelings, a younger Norman sort of, crouched down on the ground, terrified. And she, like Emma just looks on, determined. The others are kind of like, Vincent and so on are like, where's this going to go? Ray hasn't said anything right now and is just watching on. And we have some inner dialogue from Norman next. I'm scared, ? And we go into some flashback here. It's true, I've always been scared. Strange drugs, experiments, never knowing when I'd be shipped and die, all alone. But because I had that hope with me, I couldn't afford to choose what measures I took. I couldn't afford to stop. And the visuals that we get here are his time in Lambda. So we're learning that the experiments, part of them were drugs. He did have experiments performed on him. And he also had the fear of, like, he wasn't immediately shipped out at that moment. He was sent to Lambda, but he then from there didn't know if he'd ever be shipped out. Like when the experiments would end and when he would die. So he got this sort of stay of execution, but then he was just in this series of just events where there was so much uncertainty. He was now in this place where he was pretty much back to square one, just in a different facility, but without his family, on his own. And that's where you see that, like, he really depends on having the others with him, and alone he went down this kind of path because he didn't have the likes of Emma and Ray there with him. And he says, I'll keep living and leave this place so I can see Emma and Ray and everyone else again. So there's still that sort of hopeful, that positivity there. But as we see him going through these experiments, I think you get like him meeting Vincent and so on there. You have him getting sick, you know, showing the after effects of the experiments. And a quick shot showing like Norman looking at some plans as like it looks like they're breaking through a wall. I assume roughly showing the escape. And then the very telling thing here as well is, you know, I couldn't afford to choose what measures I took. I couldn't afford to stop, as they cut to, I suppose in a way, like the tough decisions that Norman seemed to make as like the perfect leader when we saw them previously. The Minerva, like we saw him, the savior, the leader who doesn't show any sort of fear or doubt. But we see that doubt now. We see the truth behind it. The mass production facilities, him shutting them down, him having to make that decision of like the children being grown at the mass production facilities, like they are human in sort of name only. There's nothing there. I need to put them out of their misery. And it seemed like he was strong when he made that decision to sort of, you know, turn the kind of life support stuff off for them. But you see the emotional impact this time when he's doing it, and you have him saying to himself as he goes through all these sequences, the explosions, him being fine with the families being killed, him holding the knife in front of a Verk. I'm strong, it's okay, you can fight, you can win, only a little bit more. As you see, like he's out on his own, he doesn't have the support. But as Emma walks closer to him, he says, don't come any closer. I've come this far, I've no intention of turning back now. And again, Emma continues to walk forward, shouts out, no way, I won't let you go this time. And again, more inner dialogue from Norman here as we build to, I suppose, first contact in a way between Emma and Norman. I'm scared. I'm scared of demons. I'm scared of the unknown human world. I'm scared that Emma, Ray, and everyone else is going to die because of my mistakes. I'm scared. I see now because I'm scared I chose the reliable path. Because I'm scared I've been doing this all on my own. As Emma finally goes up to him, you know, holds his hand and says, you're stronger and more kind than anyone else, but you're just as cowardly and arrogant. So that's the big one. That's the chapter title there. Her noting Norman's key positive points, which is in a way just how, you know, strong, intelligent he is, but also how kind he is, but also you're also kind of a coward and arrogant with, you know, where you've gone, like thinking that you can do this all on your own. But it's like an arrogant thing to do that, but it's also sort of cowardly to do it on your own and not rely on anyone else. You're not alone anymore. Don't be afraid to believe in us. Let us share the tough things, the painful things, and the scary things. Let us carry them with you. Ray finally speaks up. Yeah, stop trying to show off by shouldering it yourself. Spill it all. You don't need to protect me. I want to walk alongside you. Ray speaks up again here and says, your family and siblings are your friends. Don't be so reserved. We don't want a future where you end up suffering, no matter what that results in. And you, what do you want? What do you want to do, Norman? And this is the kind of, you know, real armor-piercing questions finally. They've really broken through Norman's, you know, I'm going to do this on my own here. And I think it is well done, like, so far. And as much as it is sort of, like, very sudden that it's all happening, and it's all happening in just one chapter, I think it works completely. You just see the sort of, the fear in Norman now of, like, you now know that you can rely on other people, not just do this on your own. What do you actually want to do? Not what you feel you have to do because of circumstances. What do you actually want to happen? And he steps back and says, it's no good. You're already too late. I'm at a place where I just can't go back. You can't walk alongside me. And in his head he says, those two don't know just what I've gone through to get this far. But they immediately say, we know. And he didn't even say this out loud, but they say, we know. We know about the poison you used outside the castle, and about what you planned on doing to Sanju and Mujika. We also know about the experiment in the basement, and it seems like everyone has a shocked reaction to that. We're not too late. Let's all figure this out together. It's okay to be weak if you're the real Norman. It's okay to be weak if you're the real Norman. Yeah, that's the point. Then let's lose our way together. Let's struggle together. Let's laugh together. Let's live on together, Norman, is the big shot of both Emma and Ray holding their hand out to him this time. And finally, we see him break down. Three-way hug here as Norman finally embraces Emma and Ray. And he says, I want to live. I want to live. I want to live together with Emma and Ray. But it really is pointless. We don't have much longer left to live. We can't live on. And this is the shock finally coming out. I think we already knew this about Vincent and the others and so on. And we assumed the same was the case with Norman because we were shown him getting sick in a previous chapter. But now we get the full confirmation. Help me, Emma, Ray. And we get the sort of marketing tagline here. His feelings overflow. The reality they are struck with is, as the chapter comes to an end. So that's where we end it. There's still obviously more conversation to come out, which I assume is him revealing why the lifespan is so low for both him and all of the others at Lambda and what exactly is going on with them. And to some degree, I assume they're going to have to address how they can potentially cure that and so on. Because I don't think they'll just end the series in a way where they just acknowledge that within the year, like, all of the Adams are going to die. Like Hayato, Jane, like anyone who's been experimented on at Lambda or anything like that, they're all just going to be killed by default. So there has to be some sort of a solution there. And this is where I suppose Mujika comes into play. Her blood, as far as we know, all we've been told has been that it stops the demon's reliance on having to eat humans to maintain their intelligence. Now, if the experiments performed on the Lambda kids are that they've been sort of injected with demon DNA, that means Mujika's blood could have some effect on them. Like, if the way you almost view it is that, like, it's like Mujika's blood sort of stabilizes demons. So if it stabilizes the unstable aspect of a Lambda person, that could be a solution as well. And I think that's probably the direction that they have to go in, because where we end this chapter right now, what else is there really to be resolved within the series? Like, there's a few answers, of course. There's a few very obvious things that still have to be tackled. Most notably, of course, the promise with the One, we have to see that actually be fulfilled. So that involves the One coming back into play and fulfilling that, and how exactly that happens. The full scope of that being revealed. More directly, like I said, they do have to, I think, directly address the whole, what is the sickness, can it be cured? And then, with all the notable demons pretty much gone, the only characters left are Sanju and Mujika, really. So you have to bring them into the spotlight. Mujika, it makes complete sense where she comes into play, because her blood is going to be important for demons going forward, and potentially also for the Lambdas. Sanju remains a little bit of an enigma in that, like, you always have to go back to the whole idea that he wants to get back to the way things used to be, where humans were powerful enough in contact with demons where they can be honestly hunted and it be a thrill for the demons. That's the way Sanju wants to get back to. And when is he going to judge that that has been accomplished? Will he let them get away, or will he turn upon seeing how much damage the humans have caused, or what? There's definitely a path that they can go down where Sanju becomes that threat. And then we have other, like, lingering things like Isabella, is she still out there or not? Luvis, as far as I'm aware, they teased that, like, he wasn't potentially fully killed, that, like, he disappeared randomly. So he could return at some point as well. There's little bits and pieces there, but in general, like, everything has been sort of, like, a lot of the big things have been wrapped up in terms of making the series feel like it's going to go on for, like, a lot longer. I definitely feel like there's not that many chapters left to go. Just because of how kind of quickly and effectively they got through the demon kind of hierarchy. And because there's not as many noted, named characters left in play anymore, you kind of have to accelerate towards that conclusion. So a little bit left with the Lambdas. Now again, will they or won't they do anything with regards to like Vincent, Barbara, and so on, Zaze's response to what they've just witnessed here? Because there was a sort of comedic aspect to like Vincent's response and stuff like that to a lot of what's going on here, it makes me feel that ultimately they're more loyal to Norman than they are like out for revenge against demons, full stop. That if Norman is willing to go with Emma, I think they will follow him. Again, like they could take it the other path, but I think it overcomplicates the story then, because you suddenly have to have a fight between humans versus humans, and then who actually fights against them. If they're as powerful as we're led to believe, especially Zaze, can Emma and Ray fend off Zaze? I don't think they can, and it leads to then the only real options for a fight sort of being Sanju and Mujika arriving and them fighting the Lambdas, which you would then be led to believe that Sanju will likely kill the other Lambdas, and I don't think they'll go down that path. I think they want to, as much as possible, keep, I think, a lot of these characters alive. I think especially for Norman, it would be very meaningful to keep alive both, his old friends in Emma and Ray as well as his new group. I can't really see them taking them in a direction where his new group is just evil, they completely turn against him. I think there's impact to the fact that Norman does have these two sort of stages in a way to his life so far. The bit that kind of came back in a way in this chapter of the past with Emma and Ray, but also the sort of darker times where this group joined with him, and they were the people who sort of kept him almost sane during all of this, were the likes of Vincent and Zaze and so on. So I think that's what they have to cover next. Then whatever Dawn, Gilda, Sanju and Mujika are up to with regards to trying to fix the demons, dealing with the poison gas and so on. I don't know how much focus they'll give to that, just because again there's no real named demons out there as such. So I think beyond a deeper explanation of like probably Mujika herself explaining this is what my blood does, this is who I am, that's like the big lore reveal with her that probably has to come out. And then once you're done with that, you probably just have to address like, okay, how is the leadership for demons going to work? The promise actually gets made, the groups kind of get split up. Most importantly, what is the reward that Emma has offered the one? What did he want? And what is it? Because this chapter could look very different if Emma has sort of sacrificed herself to make the promise happen. It makes her look a little bit like a hypocrite that she's sort of criticizing Norman here for sacrificing himself when potentially she has sacrificed herself to allow humans to have their own section of the world back, or just get to that section of the world. So that's going to be pretty interesting. Other than that, right towards the end of the chapter here, they do reveal something pretty interesting. They talk about how we know about like the poison and stuff like that. I don't know if we know all this information. Okay, the poison, they explained that last chapter. What you planned on doing to Sanju and Mujika, that I don't think we actually know the full scope about. We also know about the experiment in the basement, which I think that was just how Norman got to the point where he knows all this stuff about demons. Knew enough about, like, this is how we defeat the Queen, basically, that sort of strategy and so on. I don't think that's necessarily something that still has to be revealed as such. So, of all those things they mentioned here, it is just what they planned on doing to Sanju and Mujika, and I think that all will be revealed the second they come back into play within the story. My prediction is that I'd say we probably at most maybe have like 10 chapters left. I just don't see where there's more content than that in a way left. But definitely in the comments let me know, how many chapters do you think are left in the series? And especially for this chapter, how good do you think the back and forth here, this big important conversation between Norman and Emma was? Did you think it was rushed, or did you really like it? And just what are your thoughts on where the series is and where it's heading over the next few chapters? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.